which means it's time for business.
Hello, Tom.
Hi there, Owen. We're going to start by having a look at how trading has got underway in Asia this Thursday.
Yeah, and indeed, well, the European markets, I'll give you first of all, Tom, opened up just in the last 10 minutes or so. To some surprise, perhaps they have shown a few gains in the first opening minutes. Don't think that is any rule for the rest of the day. No, the way things are at the moment, all opening up in London, Paris and Frankfurt, around 0.5%. I can tell you, Crédit Agricole, the French bank, its shares down 2.5%. That's in the wake of another downgrade, this time by Fitch. The Asian markets, the Nikkei finishing the day around 1.5% down. But in fact, the Hang Seng is taking most of the heat this Thursday, largely because there's one or two companies who floated in Hong Kong this week. It is supposedly the place to have an IPO these days. But Chow Tai Fook, the largest jeweller in the world, largest listed jeweller, its share price down 9% on its first day of trading in Hong Kong. So not a very auspicious start there.
All right. Well, back here in Europe, the debt crisis is showing no real signs of declining, and the full implications appear to be sinking in here in France. The French foreign minister said a downgrade of its golden credit rating would not be catastrophic. Well, that's a significant semantic shift from just weeks ago when French leaders all but ruled out such an event. Well, France 24's William Edwards now reports that even a minor downgrade would impact Europe's most vulnerable economies.
On a visit to Libya on Wednesday, French Foreign Minister Alain Juppé was also making headlines back home. He's added his voice to that of President Sarkozy, saying that a downgrade for France's AAA credit rating wouldn't be so bad.
Of course, it wouldn't be good news, but it wouldn't be disastrous either. The US, who have lost their AAA, continue to borrow on the markets at low rates.
Meanwhile, the governor of the Bank of France has come out against the ratings agencies in an interview this Thursday, calling them incomprehensible and irrational. Such fighting talk has fueled concerns that a French credit rating downgrade could be imminent. While such a move may not have an instant negative effect on France, it would cause more headaches for the Eurozone. The continent's bailout fund, known as the EFSF, depends on core Eurozone nations being able to access the markets at low rates. A downgrade could bring an end to France's cheap credit. On Wednesday, the euro hit its lowest level against the dollar since January. As well as the concerns about France's credit rating, worries persist that last Friday's Eurozone summit didn't come up with a short-term solution to the region's debt crisis.
Well, I'm sure that the EU meeting decisions are far enough on a middle and long-term track. But on a short-term track, we still have the problem of the refinancing of the countries in the southern part of Europe. So we need the help of the central banks.
So, 1 week on from the summit that was intended to save the euro, the single currency still seems as troubled as ever.
Now, Owen, we've been following one story here in the press quite considerably. It's in Japan. It involves the camera maker Olympus. What's the latest there?
Yeah, well, a full-on boardroom battle now, Tom, no less. Olympus shares, in fact, took another pounding on the markets today, closing the day on the Nikkei 20% down. Remember, Olympus shares are off by some 80% over the last 3 months or so in the wake of that huge corporate scandal involving an alleged cover-up of losses over acquisitions dating back to the 1990s. Some $1.7 billion is the current estimate. As I say, we now got a full boardroom battle in the offing. That was largely after the president of Olympus, Shushi Takayama, gave a fairly lukewarm endorsement about the idea of welcoming back Michael Woodford. He was the chief executive of Olympus, who blew the whistle on these cover-ups, led to his sacking. Woodford is back in Japan, has been briefing lots of investors this week about his potential plans to take over Olympus. He wants back into the company and gave a fairly strong reaction at his own news conference about the idea of the board trying to block his way back in. Here's Michael Woodford.
Mr. Takayama, he was on the board which approved the purchase of the Mickey Mouse companies for $800 million. He was on the board which approved the $700 million in fees to unknown parties for no work and pay it through the Cayman Islands. He is responsible. Should that man be the president and custodian of one of Japanese iconic companies? How dare he? How dare he?
That was the former CEO of Olympus, Michael Woodford, speaking there. Now, China has opened up a new front in its trade war with the United States. Authorities have effectively doubled import tariffs on large cars made by some of the most famous American brands. They claim the US is dumping products on their market, and that's a complaint that's usually leveled at China itself. Well, Henry Morton is in the Chinese capital. He joins us now. Henry, this looks a lot like revenge on the part of the Chinese over a long-standing battle of the tires.
Yes, that's right. Although if you listen to the Chinese government, they say it's nothing of the sort. The Ministry of Trade here citing anti-dumping and anti-subsidy reasons for the imposition of these tariffs. However, if you look at more detail about what these are actually going to affect, it's only some 50,000 automobile sales here in China. That compared to a total last year of 18 million in China. Many analysts are saying this is simply revenge for imposition on tyre imports into the USA from the Obama administration back in 2009. Now, you may say that this has been sort of somewhat long time in coming. However, the WTO back in September upheld the reasons behind the legality of the imposition of those tariffs on Chinese tyres. And now many analysts saying that the Chinese simply getting their own back, especially since on Monday there's a further WTO investigation into Chinese tariffs on imports of poultry products, US poultry products into China. So people saying that the Chinese are simply flexing their muscles in this ongoing trade dispute between the Chinese and the US.
All right, Henry Morton there in Beijing. Thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date.
Can I just say that I love the way that the moment we started talking about cars and tyres there, we heard what appeared to be a car horn honking in the background there. Absolutely on cue.
On cue.
I promise we didn't arrange that.
Well, Henry did.
Yeah, he must have done.
All right, let's have a look at some of the other headlines we're following here. And Commerce Bank has announced that it started to shore up its capital base with a 700 million euro securities repurchasing. Germany's second biggest bank has been told it needs more than 5 billion euros of fresh funds to meet new international laws aimed at keeping banks solvent. Well, the German government is offering help by reactivating an emergency fund with a lending capacity of up to 500 million euros.
And the Brazilian government is suing Chevron and Transocean for more than $10 billion and demanding that both companies leave the country following an oil spill off its coastline. Around 3,000 barrels of oil leaked while the companies were drilling an undersea well near Rio de Janeiro. Prosecutors claim both firms had shown a lack of planning and environmental management. The two companies say they haven't yet been notified about the case.
All right, and before we go, Real Madrid manager Jose Mourinho is looking to score with an even wider audience. I mean, what's this about?
Well, let's face it, Tom. Jose Mourinho, the Real Madrid manager, is not the kind of man perhaps that needs any more money. He's one of the best paid football managers in the world, but he is likely to enjoy a new windfall. That's because he's the subject of a new cartoon in development, would you believe? It's called Mourinho and the Special Ones. That's the name he gave himself when he was Chelsea manager. It's a cartoon aimed at helping youngsters improve their footballing skills. He'll get the usual sort of flat fee plus royalties. This is being developed by a company called Sports Stars Media, which has acquired the rights to this. It's aiming to float, I think, in Portugal, hoping to raise around 2 million euros or so. But this is, of course, tapping into a global merchandising market, sports merchandising market of some 20 billion euros or so.
Okay, well,
not bad, eh?
Yeah, I'll get myself a Mourinho t-shirt. Thank you very much indeed, Owen Fairclough. That was the business news. Well, still to come, a check of all the top stories on the front pages of the international press, and we'll be looking at a haunting article in the International Herald Tribune, which gives a detailed account of a horrific 2005 massacre in Iraq. That's with Elena Casas. Stay tuned.